Hi, my name is Stewart Lynch, and this is the second video in a series where I work with the fabulous charts framework that's available as open source from GitHub. As this is the second video in this series, I'm going to use the same format as I did when I introduced the framework by showing you how to implement a bar chart. In that video, I go through in much detail how I discovered the different options to use. If you haven't already watched that video, I recommend that you do, as I'll be going through this much more quickly. I'm going to be using the same techniques that I deployed in the first video, and I'll leave a link in the description below. If this is something you want to learn, then keep watching. The charts framework is made for UIKit and is available from the Git repository. You can install it with CocoaPods or Carthage, but I'm just going to download the source and add the framework manually. I'm running it on my new Mac Mini Silicon right now, and it's my understanding that these dependencies need some work yet. So download the zip file and expand it. I have mine here on the desktop. I'm going to start the same way by creating a new Xcode project that I'll call PieCharts. And I'll make sure that I choose SwiftUI as the interface and lifecycle. Now open the Charts master folder and drag the Charts Xcode project file into your project. Next, select the PieChart project target and add the charts framework. I've also provided a file that you can use in our project that has a model for our data along with some sample data, and I'll go over this shortly. And you can download this from the link in the description below. Once downloaded, drag and drop it into your project, making sure that you have copy items if needed selected. Again, I'm going through this much quicker than I did in the first video in this series, so be sure to watch that one first. As this is a UIKit framework, the first thing we need to do is to create a UIViewRepresentable so that we can represent this view in SwiftUI. So start by creating a new file, and I'm going to call mine PieChart. I'll change the import to SwiftUI and import the charts framework as well. Now create a struct called PieChart that conforms to UIViewRepresentable, and let Xcode create the type alias for you. Set the type alias to PieChartView and save. Then let Xcode generate the protocol stubs, and with that done you can delete the type alias. I know, as I did with the bar chart, that I'm going to want to use some of the PieChart delegate functions, so I'll need a coordinator. But before I do that, let's create a struct property called PieChart that is a PieChart view. And you can return that property in the makeUIView function. Next, within the struct, create a coordinator class that conforms to NSObject and the ChartView delegate. And let Xcode add the required function. Now I like to keep these together, so I'm going to take the makeCoordinator function and move it down below the coordinator class. In the coordinator class, create a property called parent that is a PieChart and initialize it as self. In makeCoordinator function, we can return an instance of this coordinator class using the PieChart struct itself as the parent. And finally, back in makeUIView, we need to make the contents coordinator the PieChart delegate before returning. No matter which of the different chart views that you want to add to your projects, this part is exactly the same. The only change will be that instead of a PieChart view, it could be any one of the different charts available. Now, in order to work with a PieChart and see how we can configure the different options, you should have some sample data that represents the data that you want to plot as a pie chart. And at the beginning of this video, I had asked you to download and import the wine file. Now this is a simple struct that has three properties: a category, a value, and a label. Now the category is an enum, and it has two cases: variety and winery. And there's a static array called all wines that's an array of wine that we can use to test our pie charts. Our goal is to be able to select the category and to be able to display a pie chart representing the wineries or the varieties based on which category I choose. All charts have a data entry struct, and for pie charts, it's appropriately named PieChart data entry. And in our case, we're going to use the one that requires a value and a label. So we want to use our wine value and label for that. So let's import charts and create a static function where we can accept an array of wine and a specified category and return an array of PieChart data entry. We can filter that array by the category and assign it to requested wines. And now that we have our wine filtered, we can map each wine in the array to a PieChart data entry and return it. Let me return to the PieChart file now, and let's make sure that we can use this sample data. First, our pie chart needs to be initialized with an array of PieChart data entry. So let's create a variable for that. In the Update UI view, we can create a dataset containing those entries. So let dataset equals PieChart dataset using the entries that we've already declared. Next, with the dataset, we can create our PieChart data. So let PieChart data equals PieChart data, passing in that dataset. Now that's all we need to create our pie chart at a bare minimum with defaults. We just need to assign that to the data property of our pie chart view that is referenced in this function as a UI view. With that in place now, then we can create a preview provider for our wines using our sample data for a particular category. So outside of our struct, we'll start with a struct called PieChart previews that conforms to preview provider. This requires one static property called previews that is SomeView. And this view is our pie chart. And it requires an array of PieChart data entry. And for that, we can use that static function that we just created in our wine struct. And we'll use the all wines sample data to display a category. Let's say variety. Let's resume the preview. And let's set the device to an iPhone 12. Now, granted, we still have some work to do, but there you have it, a pie chart. This process that I've gone through is the same for all of the different charts that I want to implement. It's how we started with the bar chart in the first video. What we need to do now is to format and customize the appearance. One thing I am going to do though for this preview so that we can see it better in the video is to add a frame height and some horizontal padding. The first thing we want to do is add colors for each individual slice. And this means setting the color property for the data set before creating our chart data. And this is just an array of colors. It's the same thing that we did with our bar charts. So if we start an array of colors like red, blue, and green, we'll see that the slices alternate between these colors entered. If you know exactly how many different items that are in your category, you can have a different color for each one. Notice as well that the legend displays only the number of values as there are colors, but you do see the labels printed on top of the slice. Now, since I don't know how many items there might be in any one of our categories, the colors just cycle through. One thing I can do is use a color chart template, which is a class provided by the charts framework, and it offers a number of functions that return an array of colors. Remember that from the last video, an NSUI color is just a type alias for UI color. Testing Liberty, I see that doesn't work for me. However, colorful looks pretty good. Now for the rest of our customization, I'm going to create 5 functions that'll help me configure my data. We did a similar thing with our bar chart. The first one will be configure chart that modifies properties of the PieChart itself. Next, I'll want a function that is specific to formatting the center circle. And like the previous function, it modifies some PieChart properties, but I want to keep them separate because this is specific to that center hole. The next 2 functions will format particular properties of the PieChart. The first one will be chart description. The next one will be the legend. And the final function will format the dataset itself. So back in Update UIView, we can call these functions after we have our data. So for the first 2, we'll pass in our PieChart view, which is the UI view. Next, we can pass in the specific UI view properties for chart description and for legend. And finally, we'll call the function that passes in the dataset itself. And then, because we'll be updating this in our SwiftUI views with a binding eventually in our category, we want to ensure that we notify the PieChart view to update. Now it's just a matter of playing around with the different options available to us for configuring and formatting our chart. I'm going to leave it up to you to explore the different components, format highlighters, etc. And you should really look through the sample UI code that the chart framework offers in their sample projects so that you can get a feel for what's possible. In this tutorial, I'm just going to add some ones that I think make this particular chart present itself better. So first, let's use the configure chart function. If I enter preview mode right now, you'll notice that when I drag around, the chart rotates. And this might be nice, but it's not what I want for this particular chart. So I'm going to disable that by applying the rotation enable property and setting it to false. Each time our view changes though and it loads, I want the chart to animate in. So for this, I can animate the PieChart on the x-axis for half a second with an ease in out circ easing option. So if we go to preview and change the category, you'll see that it happens here as the view gets refreshed each time we change a category. Nice. Now these labels will get right in the way, especially if we have multiple pies, and they'll be difficult to read. So I'm going to disable these here, and then shortly I'll show you how we can do a better job. So PieChart draw entry labels enabled equals false. Now to format the center, we want to be able to make sure that the background color of the whole is going to be the same as the background that I have on my view, which happens to be a system background color. And when the chart loads, we want the center of our chart to say what the category is. And we'll change this when the user selects a different category, so we'll need a binding to this to be passed in from our SwiftUI view. So at the top of our struct, let's create a binding called category that is of type wine.category. And in our preview provider, we'll need to add category, and we'll provide a constant of, let's say, variety. With that in place now, we can display the center using the center text property, giving it the category's raw value and capitalizing it. One thing I have found though is that if your center text is long, it gets truncated. So to maximize the amount of text displayed, you can set the center text radius % property. So let's say 0.95. And what this will do is it'll ensure that it'll stay within the center, but with some padding on either side. Our goal is to eventually change this center text so that when one taps on a slice, the name of the winery or variety will be displayed inside the center instead of the category, along with the number of items. So we're going to need to display the category somewhere else. And that's where the description or the chart description comes in. And currently there is no chart description showing. So to enable this, we can specify a description text property on our chart description. And we'll use the same as we used for the initial center text, but we'll set the size to a bold system font of size 17. Now, since this legend only displays the first few slices, it's not very helpful here. So I'm going to do one thing only, and that's to disable it. And this essentially will hide it. And finally, for our data set, I could configure these numbers here, but without knowing what they are, it doesn't really make any sense. So I'm going to disable the values being displayed here because I want to display the values inside the center when a slice is selected. Now you may wonder why I created functions to just change one property. Well, I like to format all of my charts the same way, and there may be many cases where I might want to modify more of the properties inside one of these functions. So with this framework, I can do that in a function, and that makes sense to me. Now we're on to making that selection functionality possible. Currently, when you tap a slice, it expands away to show what is selected. What I want to do is to specify the slice label and value in the center. And this is why we had to add a coordinator, so that we could access the chart value selected delegate function. So back in our coordinator, let's add that function. Once selected, we want to change the center text of our parent's pie chart. And for this, we'll need to access the entry's value for key label, and we'll need to unwrap it and cast it as a string. We can also access the value for key value and cast it as a double. And since we know that our values are always going to be integers, we can convert it to an int here. And with that information in place, we can use string interpolation and multi-line strings to set the center text of our parent's pie chart. When we preview the chart, a slice expands, and the information is displayed in the center. Just one more thing. When we switch categories from wineries to varieties or vice versa, we want to make sure that we reset this slice so that it's not expanded. Essentially what we're doing is we're undoing all highlighting. So back in configure chart, we can add one of the highlight value functions. And I see that in this overload, it's what we want. We'll set x to -1 for dataset index 0 and not call the delegate function. Now that we have our UIViewRepresentable in place, we can use it in our project. So let's return to Content View. First, import charts. We'll create two private state properties. One for PieChart entries, and that's going to be the array of PieChart data entry, and we'll set it to be an empty array at first. The second will be the initial category, and we'll just choose a category of variety. We can use this category state property to create a segmented control, and in SwiftUI, this is a picker. So in the body, we'll create a VStack and we'll add a picker using a selection of $category. And for the label text, we'll just use the string category. For the content, we'll just create two text views. One will be for varieties and one for wineries. And we'll use the corresponding category as a tag. And we'll set the picker style to segmented picker style. Now above the picker, we'll create an instance of our new PieChart, and we can pass in any type of PieChart data entry filtering by category. Well, we have that function in our wine struct that is used to convert our wine data to PieChart data entry. So we can use that sample data again if we want here, or in a real app, you'll probably be getting your data from your back end. So we can do this by getting all wines for a specified category, and then we'll set our category to the selected one. We can preview now. Let's set the frame of our PieChart to a height of 400 and add some horizontal padding to the entire VStack. We can now test again in preview and switch between winery and variety, and we get a nice animated switch. And when I tap on a slice, the center text displays both the label and value on two different lines. And each time I switch categories, the highlight gets reset. Well, there you have it. If I run in the simulator, I can switch between light and dark mode, and it looks great in both. With this video and the one on bar charts, you should now be able to create your own UIViewRepresentables to display charts of any type using the wonderful charts framework in your own projects. I have lots of other videos available and in the queue as well, so please check out the rest of my channel. You can also visit my website to see the apps that I have available on the App Store, and visit my GitHub page to see what I have available as public repositories. If you like what you've seen, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And ring the bell to get notified when I post new videos. I'm most active on Twitter, so please follow me there as well to find out what else I'm up to. Thanks for watching.